In today's climate, we often hear Black people talk about having the talk. This is the conversation where parents have the conversations Black parents have with their Black sons and daughters, particularly your Black sons, about how to engage the police. For being completely honest, I never had that talk. But for me, I grew up in the 70s during the time where representations of how Black people engaged with the police was often shaped through all the historical footage I saw of what happened during the 50s and 60s. So for me, having the talk didn't occur because I had a reference point from what the historical impact of Black people engaging with the police had been. Fast forward to 1996. I'm a 27-year-old young officer, and I am stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. At the time, I lived at a place, I had a house on a beach called North Topsail Beach. For those of you who may not be familiar, most bases have multiple ways of getting on and off of them. Camp Lejeune had what was called the back gate, which allowed you to go from the back part of the gate into a town called Sneed's Ferry, where you took a side road that took you to a bridge that would take you onto the island that was North Topsail Beach. So for me, this was my normal routine. So if I was at work, or maybe if I was just trying to take a shortcut through the base, I would go through the back gate, take this particular road into Sneed's Ferry, make a left turn, take a road that would head to this bridge that would then take me on the Topsail Beach. So imagine what happens this one particular night. It's late. It's probably about 11:30, almost a quarter to midnight. I was tired. I had been up all day and did my normal routine of cutting through the base. And as like what most young people, I'm in a hurry to get home. So I am speeding. So I'm driving down the way, come up, of course, to the normal Sneed's Ferry. I make a left turn, and then I am making a beeline straight for the house. And so I'm driving as quickly as I could. Out of nowhere, I see lights approaching me. Of course, like with all things, I'm still speeding because I'm not thinking anything of it. This is a back road. Nobody travels on this road except for those people who are coming on and off, going back and forth from the people who live in my area. So at 11:30 at night, I didn't think anything of it. All of a sudden, as I get closer, I realize this car that I'm speeding quickly towards is a police car. And boy, I had a moment. And like, oh my goodness. And so as I'm speeding past, and of course I'm starting to slow down, doesn't make a difference because I was speeding, I see the brake lights come on the car. So I already know what time it is. He's about to make a U-turn and come and see me. And so as I am approaching the bridge, I'm still looking out of my rearview mirror and noticing that he is making the U-turn in the street and he is coming behind me. Now, mind you, this is 11:30 at night. There's nobody else on there. So that means if he's making a U-turn, he's coming for one specific purpose, and that is to come and see me. Now, in that moment, I had a few decisions to make, and I came really quickly down to the realization that I had three options that were in front of me. Option number one is I could just punch it and just drive as fast as I could over the bridge, taking in my mind that he still hadn't gotten to the bridge yet. So taking the possibility because the island actually had a couple of roadways. So I could have made a quick left and gone down a side street and parked somewhere. Or I could have kept going straight, made a beeline off to the right to get to where my place was, which was about 1.5 miles down. So I thought maybe if I race, I could get there beforehand. But I kept thinking in my mind, now if I gun it, I stand a great chance that by the time he catches up with me, and he will not be in a good mood. So therefore, rule that one out. The second one is I figured, well, keep driving like you're going to your normal place and just play dumb. So in my mind, I knew he was going to catch up with me. I said, well, I'll just go up there and just keep on driving like a normal dude and just say, hey, officer, not sure why you pulled me over because I was doing the speed limit. But I knew I wasn't. And again, it's 11:30. There's nobody else on this road. So I opted for option 3. Again, remember, this is a back road. I come over the bridge, completely dark. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to pull over to the side of the road because he's already going to come. So I'm just not, why even mess around? So I get over the top of the bridge, get down at the bottom. He still hasn't come yet, but I can hear the siren, so I know he's coming. Get down to the bottom of the bridge, get off to the side of the road, pull over to the side, hit my hazard lights, and yes, I did this. I stuck my hands out the window. So of course now, my hands out the window, I'm waiting. So as fate would have it, hear the sirens, here comes the car, and he pulls up behind me, lights going, turns the sirens off, headlights, floodlight on me, my hands still out the window, just like this. And this was probably the only time I'd ever had somebody walk up to the car laughing at the same time. So he comes up to the door and he's like, you don't have to do that. And so this was a white officer. And so I put my hands back in. And so one of the first things he did was he looked on the windshield of my car. Now, for those of you who don't know, back then, in order to drive on base, if you were on base, anybody could drive through because it was still an open base because this was pre 9/11. But at this particular point in time, if you were on base without a visitor's tag, meaning you were there to be there, you typically had 4 types of tags for your car. You had a black one, which was for retirees, a green one, which was for civil servants, a red one was for enlisted, and a blue one was for officers. And so I had a blue one on mine. And I remember he walked up to me and he leaned forward and he looked at the tag and he said, sir, you were going a little fast. And I told him, I said, my apologies. It's late. I lived like a mile down the street. I was just tired. I just was trying to get home. And so he turns to me and he says, sir, you're an officer. Where do you serve? I said, well, I'm Naval Hospital. Oh, and he turns to me and he says, hey, I was at group, which for me is second FSSG. Don't worry about the designation. But he said, I was with group for the Marines for a while. I said, oh, cool. I said, you're retired, I assume? He said, yeah, I did my time, did 4 years and got out and so forth. So I'm here now. And so I said, okay. And he turns to me, he said, sir, just slow it down. I said, not a problem. He nodded. He said, you have a good day. Got back in his car, turned back around, left. No ticket, no issues, no problem. But I think it's important for people to recognize that could have gone very differently. I know there's going to be people who see this and say, hey, see, nothing happened. What is the problem? The reality is I couldn't take that risk. I was still in the rural South. I did not know what circumstances I was walking into. There was no lights where I was at. I was on a dark road. I had nobody close by. I didn't have a cell phone to let anybody know what was happening because it's, again, 96, so we're talking pre-active cell phone time period. I'm sitting here with a police car that's coming up behind me. I don't know what his intentions are. Yes, they are there to protect and serve, but again, I am in the rural South on a dark road in the middle of the night. How many horror movies or movies you've seen about the civil rights movies started with a situation just like that? So in my mind, I told myself I had to be mindful of the circumstances. But I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was me putting my hands out to the side, me pulling over to the side of the road, him seeing that I had a military designation and I was an officer, or the fact that he was a Marine. I don't know what any of those things did, if they played any part of it at all. All I know is that in that particular moment, things went better than I thought, and it could have easily went another way. But it was funny because when I came back and told a couple of the older officers and older enlisted about what happened, kind of feeling a sense of relief, they effectively told me 2 things that stood out. One, the fact that I was in close proximity to the base meant that there was a greater likelihood that any law enforcement that I ran across was probably going to be prior service. So what I had to my advantage is that a lot of the Marines who got out of the military would end up going into law enforcement, local law enforcement. So as long as you don't lose your mind, you have a pretty decent opportunity that somebody who pulls you over is probably somebody who has served. Therefore, there's a greater likelihood that you're not going to have any issues. But what the other thing they stressed was your attitude of survival is crucial, because as you get further away from the base and you move through other parts of North Carolina or South Carolina or Virginia, there is a greater likelihood that those survival skills may be necessary because you just don't know. Looking back, I know it's easy for people to start talking about how you're so corny, you stuck your hands out the corner, you're so soft. And I'm thinking, dude, at the end of the day, it wasn't about being brave, wasn't about being soft, it was about surviving. So many instances in the history of our country, especially with Black people in areas where law enforcement are involved, could end up badly. Now, that's not to say that all law enforcement is bad, so that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that generationally, I came from a period of time where I saw many representations and images of situations where people of color, Black people, found themselves in situations where they did everything they could to de-escalate a situation, and the situation escalated even without them doing anything. So my mission was to de-escalate the situation as much as possible. Knew he was coming behind me, I pulled over. Knew he was coming up to the door, I wanted him to know that I was no longer, I wasn't a threat, period. In my mind, all I kept thinking was, I need to be here another day. And so if I could do whatever is possible to make sure I do not put myself in a situation that may escalate the situation, that's all I thought about. And that came from a reference point, because the reality is that I was in Generation X. I'm moving through this area where, unlike my parents' generations, where they knew where the clear present dangers were, I didn't. So I had to take the assumption that every opportunity that presented itself like this could potentially be a dangerous one. So I needed to treat that accordingly. If you've ever had a moment like this where your instinct took over for survival purposes, please share it. As always, if you like what I'm doing here, like, share, subscribe. I always welcome your feedback. I hope you got something from this and recognize this is how Black Generation X moved during a time where the dangers may have been present, but they may not have always been clear. What was your experience?